We are right in the middle of one of the biggest changes to American drug policy in the last 50 years. This is the story of cannabis rescheduling. And trust me, what it really means is a much bigger deal than you might think.
For half a century, the federal government's stance on cannabis has been, well, pretty much frozen in time. But now, everything's in motion. The rulebook is literally being rewritten right before our eyes.
So, rescheduling. It's a word we're hearing a lot right now, but what does it actually change on the ground? For businesses, for patients, for scientists, and for you. That is exactly what we're going to break down today. And just a quick heads up before we dive in, today's explainer is sponsored by our friends at marijuana.school. Okay, to really get your head around just how big this is, we've got to look at how we even got here. This wasn't some overnight decision, it's been a multi-year process that's actually crossed multiple administrations. So it all really kicked off back in October 2022, when President Biden formally requested a review. Things started moving pretty fast in August 2023 when HHS came out and recommended moving cannabis to a much less restrictive category. Then, in May 2024, the DEA officially proposed a rule to make it happen. Even President Trump played a part, signing an executive order in December 2025 to help speed things up. And now, here we are, all waiting for that final rule, which we expect to see in the first half of 2026. So the heart of the matter is this move from Schedule I-1 down to Schedule 3. But what on earth does that actually mean? Let's decode these federal drug classifications. For 50 years, think about this, cannabis was officially in Schedule 1. That put it right next to heroin and LSD, with the federal government's official position being that it has zero accepted medical use. Moving it to Schedule 3 is a seismic shift. Now it's in the same category as things like Tylenol with codeine, ketamine, and anabolic steroids, substances that are recognized as having real medical value. This is a complete 180 in how the government officially views cannabis. Now, this reclassification isn't just about symbolism. Oh no, it is about to unleash a massive economic ripple effect. And it all starts with one of the heaviest burdens on the legal cannabis industry: taxes. Just look at that number, 70%. Can you imagine trying to run a business where 70 cents of every single dollar of profit goes straight to federal taxes? And that's before you even think about state and local taxes. It has been an absolutely crushing barrier to growth for the entire industry. And the reason for that insane tax rate? It all comes down to this, Section 280E of the tax code. Basically, because cannabis was a Schedule 1 substance, businesses weren't allowed to deduct normal, everyday business expenses. I'm talking about things like rent, employee salaries, even marketing. They were taxed on their total income, not their actual profit. And this is the magic bullet. Moving to Schedule 3 basically flips a switch and just turns Section 280E off for cannabis businesses. For the very first time, they can operate like any other normal legal company, deducting their expenses and freeing up a ton of cash to reinvest, grow, and innovate. And we're not talking about some small niche market here. This is an industry that's projected to be worth nearly $47 billion by 2026. It already supports over 425,000 full-time jobs and generated something like $149 billion in economic output in 2025. This change is a total game changer for a major American industry. But it's really important to keep our expectations in check, especially around banking. While getting rid of 280E is absolutely huge, it's not a silver bullet for everything. Experts are pretty much saying this will be an evolution, not a revolution. The banks that have already put in the hard work to serve this industry are probably going to stay the dominant players for a while. This doesn't magically open every door overnight. But this story is about so much more than just business and taxes. Maybe the biggest impact will be on science, on medical research, and on the millions of actual people who use cannabis. Let's take a look. And this change isn't happening in a vacuum. I mean, just look at this chart. The number of patients using medical cannabis for qualifying conditions has absolutely skyrocketed. And chronic pain? It is by far the most common reason, more than doubling in just a few years. This policy shift is finally catching up to the reality of patient demand. Now this, for the medical community, might be the most exciting part. Being a Schedule I drug created what experts literally call crushing barriers for scientists who wanted to study it. Rescheduling is expected to swing the doors wide open for what they call the gold standard of medical research, real, double-blind, placebo-controlled trials, which have been almost impossible to do until now. Of course, with wider acceptance come new responsibilities. The American Medical Association, for instance, has voiced some public health concerns. They're advising against cannabis use in high-risk groups, like young people and pregnant or breastfeeding women. It just highlights the fact that we need a lot more research and really clear public health guidance. And you can really see why we need that research when you look at why people use cannabis. It's this fascinating mix of what you might call recreational and therapeutic uses. Sure, 64% of people say they use it for relaxation, but tons of people also use it to manage chronic pain, PTSD, and to help them sleep. That line between recreational and medical is getting blurrier every day, which is exactly why we need rock-solid science. All right, so with the rules changing and the entire economic and scientific landscape shifting, what does the future hold? And maybe just as important, what does this change not do? Okay, let's be crystal clear on this. Rescheduling is not federal legalization. Cannabis is still federally illegal for recreational use. This change doesn't mean businesses can suddenly start shipping products across state lines. It doesn't solve every single banking problem, and it doesn't change any of the state-level cannabis laws already in place. It's a federal reclassification, not a complete rewrite of the state-by-state system we have now. So here's the bottom line. This is a monumental, truly historic transitional step. It lays a brand new foundation. But for so many people, advocates, lawmakers, industry leaders, this is just the beginning. It's seen as the first big step in a much larger conversation about what federal cannabis reform is ultimately going to look like. Which brings us to our final question, and the one I'll leave you with. When public support for full legalization is sitting at a staggering 87%, is what we're watching just a simple bureaucratic reclassification? Or is this the first decisive domino to fall on that long path toward a post-prohibition America? I guess only time will tell.